Welcome to Syndicated Nightmares, where each week we will take a deep dive into an episode of Freddy's Nightmares based on the Nightmare on Elm Street films. First up, we have Is No More Mr. Nice Guy, which aired October 9th, 1988, written by Michael De Luca and directed by Tobe Hooper.
Great.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. Good. I got that. Okay. So I guess, Dave, do you want to start off with who you are and why we're doing this?
Sure.
Okay.
My name's Dave Berman. I've been a Nightmare on Elm Street fan for at least 25 years. Well, a little more than that, almost 30 years. So I'm a huge fan of the Nightmare on Elm Street series. Watched them all countless times, gone to conventions. I was on a game show as a Nightmare on Elm Street expert. Used to have a Nightmare on Elm Street website. And I'm really excited to be talking about this show, which in all these years of fandom, I've owned the DVDs, but never sat through and watched them all. So I'm excited to be doing it now.
Yeah. Dave and I actually met about almost 20 years ago.
I think more than 20 years ago.
Yeah, about 23 years ago through AOL. Well, I think you reached out to me because I had a Nightmare on Elm Street listed on my AOL profile.
Mm-hmm.
And we just started talking about a Nightmare on Elm Street. And then that was in 96, I think. I was a senior in high school, so it was either 96 or 97, one of the two.
Mm-hmm.
And we just started talking about a Nightmare on Elm Street. And at that time, like, I didn't know any real fans of horror, let alone specific genres and types of or movies for it. So it was really cool to like finally connect with someone who liked these movies as much as I did. And I remember we would write fan fiction back and forth. Like,
I totally forgot about that.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
Yeah, we would start off and like I would write a page and then just like end it on a cliffhanger and then bounce it to you, and then you would like pick it up and we would just go back and forth. I have no idea whatever happened to those, but I think it involved probably a story with Freddy and Nancy, something like that.
Yeah, Nancy in the house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have no idea what happened to that either.
Yeah, I have no idea. I'm sure it's long lost on my computer that has like Windows 3.1 on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So was this your first time watching No More Mr. Nice Guy?
No, I guess when it came out they released a handful of episodes on VHS in the 90s. And at that time, I bought the VHS and watched it back then. But this was probably my first time watching it in 20 years.
Yeah.
What about you?
No, I've watched this particular episode quite a few times because I also had the VHS that they only put like maybe like 6 or 9 episodes or something like that on VHS.
Yeah, maybe even fewer.
Yeah. And so I had those and I watched those. They were probably like the best of Freddy's Nightmares.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I watched those. And then, so I was kind of familiar with this episode, but like you, I hadn't watched it in 20 years. So it was still a surprise, on some things. Like I completely forgot that X, Y, and Z happened.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess I should give a full disclaimer that I have bootleg DVD copies now of every episode, and that's how I'm able to watch them now. So.
Yeah, likewise. I think we bought them at the same time at a horror convention.
Yeah, at some convention, like there was a guy standing in the corner. He had a trench coat on, and he like, "Hey, do you like Freddy?"
But if they released a legal version of it, I would buy it.
Oh yeah, I would absolutely buy it. Yeah, so they should do that. But I read somewhere that companies don't release a TV series on DVD unless they have 50 or more episodes. And this only has 44 episodes. But I kind of want to call bullshit on that because I know My So-Called Life, that only has 19 episodes. And that was a DVD.
Right. Or Freaks and Geeks. There's a There's a bunch of one-season shows that sold well on DVD.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that article, I don't know, it was just wrong, completely wrong. So, okay. So,
but it's also it's a tough market now. Not as many people are buying DVDs.
That's true. Well, I think if maybe Netflix like bought the rights to this, or Hulu, wherever, I think it would do really, really well. Yeah. So the storyline for this episode is Freddy Krueger has slain many children and teenagers and is currently on the loose. But after a police officer catches Freddy trying to kill his daughters, Freddy is arrested. During the trial, the judge unfortunately discovers Freddy was never read his rights, so the judge must let him go. But it does not end there. Oh. So it's the story that we all know rather well.
Yes.
It's how, Freddy kind of became Freddy in our nightmares. And going into this, when it originally aired, Freddy's Dead didn't happen yet. Freddy's Dead is in 1991, and this took place in 1988.
Yes.
And Freddy happened in 1991. So we just kind of knew what happened to Freddy based off what we were told in Nightmare 4 and during the sequels, if they mentioned it. So from what you got out of No More Mr. Nice Guy, do you think that it kind of followed suit with the canon story of what we know about Freddy?
Not so much.
Yeah.
I mean, when I watched it 20 years ago, I remember being, a little like fan geek outrage, like this isn't, how it happened at all. And now I'm a bit more relaxed and enjoyed the episode more than I thought I would. But I mean, I remember the whole description that the mom gives in the original Nightmare on Elm Street about how they killed Freddy, and she specifically says someone forgot to sign a search warrant in the right place. And in this, it was that he wasn't read his Miranda rights when he was arrested. So that, I mean,
yes.
I mean, it's not that big a change. Most people aren't going to notice, but it's like, well, why couldn't you just have it still be the search warrant thing?
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like the person who wrote this, he kind of should have known Freddy's history to be able to recall exactly what we were told in Nightmare 1. I did notice that kind of later on in the show when we were shown Freddy's boiler room, that Freddy in the TV series, he uncovers an ice cream truck.
Yes.
And makes it seem like that's how he would lure children to come get, to come over to him, that he was like the ice cream man. And I just thought that was kind of an interesting add-on, one that really wasn't needed because we didn't really see Freddy in the ice cream truck in the TV series. He just took a tarp off of it and was like, hey there, old friend, or whatever he ends up saying.
Yeah, he doesn't take it back out again.
Yeah, so I don't understand why they added that to it. Maybe it got edited out or something. Who knows what the original script had. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting to add because it was rather unnecessary.
And also the court case, like he was in a glass box in the courtroom.
Yes.
Is that a thing?
Yes. That isn't a thing. Not even a little bit. I think when you have such a heinous killer as Freddy is supposed to be, if he's that much of a safety concern, they would keep him in a cell and just video him in, the Skype equivalent of, whatever it was in the
closed
80s.
Circuit TV, I guess.
Yes, yes, that's it. Yeah, I think that they would just do that. And also I noticed they had Freddy, he wasn't in inmate clothing. He was in his sweater and pants, and he also had his hat with him, and I just wondered, does he not have to wear his whatever inmates wear?
But in a murder trial, don't you usually see the defendant wearing a suit?
Well, sometimes, yeah. If the defendant is on bail and they're able to go home, or the defense attorney brings them a suit,
Okay.
yeah, you can wear that. But I don't think that the judge would allow Freddy to wear his kill outfit.
Right.
I kind of, it's like, I keep thinking like Hannibal Lecter. Would the judge let Hannibal Lecter wear his kill outfit if he would, like, when he was on trial? Or, it's just
probably
or
not.
Dexter,
Yeah.
Is Dexter going to be able to wear his kill outfit? It's just, that just struck me as odd that they would do that. And I understand from like a TV point of view or a viewer point of view, like, oh, we have to make sure that the audience knows this is Freddy, so of course let's put him in the red and green sweater. But just for practicality reasons, or like to actually make it believable, maybe they should have put him in like inmate clothing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they could have the stripes on it to keep the theme going.
Oh, it would be great if his inmate number was like 1428.
Oh yeah. Missed opportunity.
So that could have been, that would have been great. Yeah. And then I also noticed that, especially it was during the trial, we never got to see Robert's actual face.
Yeah.
Like, we would only see him from the chin down. There was one time that we kind of saw his face, but there was like a really dark shadow over most of it. And so you just got to see like his teeth. And so I didn't know if they did that on purpose, because I don't think we had actually seen Robert Englund as, non-makeup Freddy prior to that. So maybe it was something to where they weren't allowed to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely looks like it was an intentional choice not to show his face. But I really liked, though, his like body language, because even though it's like this low budget ripoff of the movies, it's still Robert playing Freddy, and that was neat to see. Like, oh, this is this is fantastic Freddy actor Robert Englund, and he's still being great with what he has to work with here.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I wonder if they even toyed with the idea of having a different person play TV Freddy. Or if they were just like, nope, we've done 3 movies so far, or 4 movies by this point, and if Robert is Freddy, and that's that. So, and I guess it's been almost 35 years later, and there's still that argument of only Robert can play Freddy. Some people disagree, some people agree with that, and that's their own thing. But yeah, so maybe in 1988, that's when the argument really started that, hey, only Robert can play Freddy.
And if I'm not mistaken, like, I mean, Freddy's in this episode a lot, but in future episodes, it's more of just like the Crypt Keeper from Tales from the Crypt, that he just pops up at the breaks.
Yeah, it was really only the very first episode that he makes an appearance throughout the episode. The rest is exactly how he said it. Was just like he was just the Crypt Keeper introducing the episode, and then it kind of went on from there.
So, but yeah, he seems to be giving it his all.
Oh yeah, he was definitely great in it. I wouldn't expect that, otherwise.
Right.
Yeah. So did you notice during the episode the Freddy vision that was going on? Like, whenever we were supposed to be watching what was going on for like Freddy's point of view, it was this like blurry, like kind of like demonic Freddy vision going on.
I did see that, yeah.
Yeah.
And there was also like it froze on his eye, and you zoomed all the way into his eye, or something like that.
Yeah. I think now something like that, it's kind of a trope camera work to do that. But maybe then in 1988, that was just like, not new technology, but like something new to do. And, maybe they were just way ahead of their time, or they started something.
Yeah.
So what do you remember from the episode about how the townspeople handled, I guess, Freddy's murder?
It was weird. Like, they go to the boiler room. The townspeople go to the boiler room, and then Freddy like goes to the house, the police officer's house, and they chase him over there.
Yeah.
And then they go right back to the boiler room, and that. It's just a little bit of back and forth before they actually kill him.
Mm-hmm. Well, I noticed that in the episode, the police officer's house is not 1428 Elm Street. And after they, like, the first 25 minutes of the episode was kind of like a prologue of just Freddy's court case and how he became to be. But after that, I guess it probably would have been like the first commercial break if we were watching this on air. After the first commercial break, the detective comes out of 1428 Elm Street, and he's acting like that's his actual home.
Oh, right, when he opens the
or was
box
that just a part
and
of a
Freddy's
nightmare?
glove pops out.
Yeah. So I wasn't sure, was that part of his dream, or was he actually supposed to be living at 1428 Elm Street?
It's a good question. But his front door in reality didn't look anything like that one.
And they even showed the address, and it wasn't 1428.
And I guess this is some like alternate telling where it's not meant to have the same characters as the original Nightmare. Yeah.
Well, no, because they didn't even mention Donald Thompson. They didn't mention him at all.
So, or Marge, or Johnny Depp's parents.
Yeah, Marge. None of them. And I don't recall them talking about, like, saying that they lived on Elm Street at all, unless I just missed it. But I don't remember them saying, like, oh yeah, I live on Elm Street too, and I'm not going to let this, crazy murderer take my street, or whatever.
Right. Although it did, when he dropped off the girls at school, I mean, maybe it's just another street that looks like it, but it looked like the same street where Nancy and Glenn and Tina are walking to school in the morning when Rod comes up behind them. It looked like that same street.
Yeah, and it could have been. Yeah. But I did remember when they were talking about the body being at the power plant. At first, I thought, like, no, his body isn't in the power plant. It's at the junkyard. But they were talking about a different character, like a different character's body was found at the power plant. I was like, oh, okay, well, that makes more sense. But so they did go to the junkyard to get the car to find, just make sure that Freddy's body was still in there. And the car that they used looked very, very similar to the actual car in Nightmare 3 that Donald opens up. So I don't know if it's the same exact car, or if they just remembered that one tiny detail and they're like, we need to step up our game.
Right. Let's match one thing from the film series.
Yeah.
I really liked that they tied in the disposal of his body from Nightmare 3 into the show.
Yeah, I think that was definitely needed for the hardcore fans that know the story really well. Yeah, for the leisure fans that were just watching, that probably didn't really matter to them, or maybe they didn't even know, because they might be the type of fan who just saw the original and that was that, and they're like, oh, I'll just watch the TV show because why not?
Right, as long as Freddy's in it and there's gore and whatever. So my major overall complaints, which I thought at the time that I watched it 20 years ago, is that the entire premise of the first movie is that he was a child murderer and then these people killed him and so he killed their kids. But on this show he gets his revenge on the people who killed him. Yes. So it totally negates the plot of the first one, that he's going after the adults.
Yes, exactly. That's a really good point.
Yeah, he kills. Well, before he gets burned alive, he like slashes the cop that's eating fried chicken, and then he kills one of the people that killed him and puts the body in the boiler room, and then he goes after the cop.
Yeah, I did notice that when they go to burn him, of course, Freddy's like egging them on to do it. So, which kind of contradicts how it happened in Freddy's Dead, but that might be a moot point since Freddy's Dead hadn't happened yet. And I don't know if No More Mr. Nice Guy counts as canon or not.
I remember this is the end all be all, but I remember as a kid reading the Nightmare on Elm Street comic. I think Innovation was the publisher, and reading like the letters to the editor page and then saying Freddy's Nightmares doesn't count as canon, but but these comics do, because the comics were continuing the story of, I think, Alice and the ghosts of the Dream Warriors were in it.
Yeah, that's right. I have those comics. I've just never read them.
They
I
were
probably
fun.
should.
So according to those guys who were writing who were editing that comic, Freddy's Nightmares is not canon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess if I wrote something nightmare related, I would say, yeah, this is canon.
Right.
Sure, why not?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess it doesn't matter that No More Mr. Nice Guy doesn't really follow suit to what we know as Freddy history, because it's not canon. So I mean, is it a fan film? We don't know. There's so many out there, we don't know.
But do we know? Do we understand why Freddy wants people to kill him? Like, he's like, well, no, pour gasoline on me, light me on fire. But
no, that's what I didn't understand, because knowing what happens in Freddy's Dead, if he really was being surrounded by these dream demons, then I could understand if they showed that in No More Mr. Nice Guy. That's why he was egging them on. But they really didn't mention anything about Freddy knowing that he was going to have this murderous afterlife and all these powers. So it didn't make sense to me for Freddy to be egging them on to do it. Unless I keep going back to Freddy's Dead because that's what we know as canon. But when Freddy was a teenager and Alice Cooper, his foster dad, would go to beat him, Freddy, or teenage Freddy, would egg him on to do that as well. So maybe he just really loves the pain of it and he just wanted to be burned up. I don't know. Something to ask Robert Englund. Right. When I feel like standing in line for 6 hours.
Or maybe it's the whole, turning the townspeople into the monsters,
Yeah, that's true. Because all of them, they murdered him in cold blood, whether it was revenge or not. That was a cold-blooded murder.
Yeah. I wrote down the last line that the cop says, because I loved it so much. And he says, "The law is the law, but tonight the law is on vacation."
Yes. Stellar writing. Yeah. And then, so when Freddy burns up, he just completely disappears. You don't see his charred body or his bones or anything. So I wasn't sure at that point if they were even going to talk about his remains, because it looked like he just disappeared right into thin air. And maybe that's when the dream demons were going to come, but they never did. So I'll just let it go.
But I did think the fire effects were pretty good when they burned him alive.
Yeah, and I think back then CGI was either out of the question because it was so insanely expensive, or I think they had CGI back then. They had to have, right?
I don't know.
I can't think of any movies offhand that had CGI, but that's not my area of expertise, so I'm sure some movie did. But yeah, I think practical effects were more cost effective than relying on any computer generated effect. So so I guess some guy got to get burned up as Freddy for the day. So awesome to be him.
Yeah, maybe the same guy from the first one, the same stuntman.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, speaking of it's not the first movie, but Kevin Yager, is that how you say his last name?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. He did the makeup he did Freddy's makeup for in Nightmare 2 and Nightmare 3, and he also did Freddy's makeup for No More Mr. Nice Guy.
Yeah, it looked great.
Yeah, when I was watching it, I was like, wow, whoever did that did such a great job, because it looks like the original Freddy makeup instead of I didn't care for the makeup in Nightmare 7. I didn't care for it in Nightmare 6.
Really?
I think after Nightmare 3, I didn't really care for Freddy's makeup after that. No offense to the person who did it. I just, I prefer the more dark and sinister Freddy. And I think when he became comical, his makeup became more lighthearted and easier to look at.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So,
although I do like the new Nightmare look.
Do you?
Yeah, you're not a fan?
No, and I think what really throws me off more so than the makeup is having 5 razor blades instead of just 4. That thumb razor blade just ticks me off. I don't know what it is about it. I love New Nightmare. It's my second favorite out of the whole series. But it's just having those 5 claws, it just gets me every time.
Yeah, that's
yeah, like
they changed up the design.
Yeah, they did. I know, like Jason, he has his signature weapon, which is a machete. But throughout the series, he has different kill weapons, and that's fine because he's kind of an opportunistic killer with whatever he has laying around, and so that doesn't bother me that they mix it up at all. But for some reason, it's just Freddy has 4 razor blades, and that's it. So, yeah, I'm going to write a letter, and I'm going to let them know how I feel about his 5 razor blades.
Yeah.
So, and I think maybe it was in one of the novelizations of A Nightmare on Elm Street where they talk about why there's the 4 razor blades. I want to say that the 4 razor blades represent the first 4 boys that he killed. But that might have been in a fan fiction movie, and I'm just taking that as canon for some reason.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I could be completely wrong as to why the 4 razor blades are there, but for some reason in my mind, that's why, and I think that that's and that's my problem with it. So, moving on.
So can we talk about the town of Springwood for a second?
Yes.
Because there was so we're both from Ohio, where Springwood's supposed to be. And at one point, so preface that one thing I love, because I like it, I like visiting it, but I'm not a huge fan of New York City. So I really enjoyed the New York City bashing dialogue.
Yes.
Because the cop's family had moved there from New York City, and the wife kept like describing it as this, crime-ridden hellscape.
Yeah.
I think I wrote down her line, like everything imaginable on the streets except decent people. Like New York is just this awful, awful, awful place. But then they moved to Springwood, and at one point the cop describes it as a hick town, which it's not a hick town.
Yes. That is so funny because you just mentioned 2 points that I wrote down as well. How he said, "God, I hate hick towns." And I was like, wow, maybe you could get away with saying that in the 80s, but now on TV, I don't think that he would be able to say that.
Right.
And then how the wife or the police officer, one of the two, was talking about how New York is safer than Springwood. And at first I was like, well, obviously they haven't seen Jason Takes Manhattan, but I'll let that one go, So maybe it isn't, sir. But yeah, that's funny that you mentioned those, because I also like that. Those two kind of struck me as like, oh, that's something that we should talk about.
Yeah, because it's in the movies. I mean, I guess here on the TV show, because it's smaller budget, it sort of feels smaller and not as many people around. But like in the movies, it feels like a well-populated, normal suburb.
Yeah. Well, I guess Springwood, I think it's supposed to be in like central Ohio. Is that right?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah, I always gathered like it was supposed to be in like where Columbus actually is on the map of Ohio. That's kind of where Springwood is supposed to be. And it's a nice suburban town where I don't know, median income would be probably like 60,000 that most households make. They don't seem too rich, but they're well off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so, and to go back on your point where they were saying that Springwood was a hick town, I think that's kind of the stereotype that Ohio gets in almost every movie, that we are just some like cow town. And I think for the most part, like Mansfield and that area, maybe. But we have big cities in Ohio. We have Columbus and Cincinnati and Cleveland. Maybe Toledo. I've only been there once, so I don't really know. But yeah,
it's a decent city. Okay. And Dayton.
Yeah, Dayton's moving up there.
And I think like pretty much every state, when you know, it has its big cities, but then there's also tons of little cities in any state.
Yeah. But I guess like in all fairness, when movies talk about Oklahoma being a hick town, I guess I never think, like, no, Oklahoma City is very big, and Tulsa, like, they have a city there, and so
good point. We're taking offense because we know Ohio.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah. But I think this also had the same problem as the first one, as the first movie, which was made before they decided it was going to be in Ohio. But I think there are some shots of palm trees in this episode.
Oh, are there?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't see any. I was kind of looking for them, but I think I was looking for them in the later half of the show.
I thought they had them on that street when he dropped the girls off at school, but I could be wrong.
Okay.
Maybe they just looked like...
They probably did. Yeah. And then towards the end of the episode, when Lieutenant Blocker is in the dentist office, I guess that's like spoiler alert, the lieutenant dies at the end. So right before he's about to die, he goes to the dentist to get his chipped tooth fixed. That happened because he was having a day terror of Freddy, and he's driving his car, and he is having his day terror, and he stops too fast or like hits his mouth on the steering wheel or something like that.
Yes.
So he ends up chipping his tooth, and he has to go to the dentist for it. And so when he's in the dentist chair, and even though this is late 80s, he's like sexually harassing the nurse.
Oh, right.
Who's like putting him under, talking about like what a great body she has, and how his one partner is like, oh, I see you're in good hands because she's a very attractive nurse, and all that. I'm like, really? Did we have to go there for that?
Right. Oh, he says like, I can see through your clothes, and she's just like, oh, tee-hee, that's just a guess.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Yeah. And I wasn't sure, like, was that at the beginning of his dream, so that really wasn't her actual response? I got the feeling that it was her actual response, and he wasn't in dreamland yet. I just want to be like, no, sir, I'm pretty sure she just wouldn't be okay with that.
Right. Well, he got his punishment shortly thereafter. Yeah.
I guess he did, yeah. But yeah, I mean, and the nurses that work there were all very attractive people there in that hick town of Springwood. So I guess their casting kind of contradicted what was going on in the script, but that's all right.
Yeah.
And so then I found it funny, and this is towards the end, I was just nitpicking on every little detail. And when he has to count backwards from 10, when he gets the gas. Yeah. And he goes to count backwards from 10. I had my wisdom teeth taken out in January, so I'm pretty familiar with going under. And I was told to count backwards from 10. I didn't even get the first letter out of 10 before I was completely under. So, and he like is able to count back all the way to like, he makes it to like 6 or 5 or somewhere. I'm just like, no, I didn't make it to 9.5. Like,
right.
So
it's so weird because you don't feel yourself getting tired. It's like you're counting, and then all of a sudden it's hours later.
Yeah. Well, when I was put under, I could like kind of feel like my vision was getting real spotty. And I asked the surgeon, I was like, oh, did you give me whatever it is? And he was like, yeah, I just count backwards from 10. And that's when I started. And then I think like 45 minutes later, I woke up in the recovery room with a mouthful of cotton, And I was like, oh, 9, 8, 7. So I just continued to count.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Yeah. From what I was told, I don't remember too much, but I guess I was quite the comedian when I was coming out from the anesthesia. So I thanked the nurse for not letting me die, because I was very concerned that I was going to be like the 1 in 1,000 people, or like 1 in 1 million people who don't survive being or going under. And so I was very concerned that I was going to die. And so I thanked her for not letting me die. And then I told her that I would send her edible arrangements as a thank you for...
that's very thoughtful.
making sure that I stayed alive. Yeah, I was very thoughtful. I never sent them to her. No, no. I would think that would kind of be creepy, but maybe she was looking forward to it. Maybe I should. It's only been 9 months, so why not? This is
if it comes directly from the company, it's not, it's safe.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So.
But you weren't able to see through anyone's clothes when you got the gas.
No, okay. And I'm not sure if that just makes me a decent human being, or if I didn't get the good stuff. And so maybe I should ask them and be like, you know what? According to No More Mr. Nice Guy, I should be able to see through your clothes. So what's up?
Right.
Yeah. Freddy has lied to me once again. That's not how life really goes.
Can't trust it.
So,
but I did like, I guess they do this in every episode, but the whole, like, what's a dream, what isn't. And so there was the whole stuff with the body disappearing and the FBI coming. Mm-hmm. And then when he's in the dentist's office and the officer is like, what are you talking about? The FBI was never coming. Mm-hmm. So I did like that aspect of it.
Yeah. And I feel like they started to do that in Nightmare 3, where you didn't know when the dream started or where it actually ended. Mm-hmm. So it was nice that the TV series picked that up and kept that going as well. Mm-hmm. I think that helps with the suspense of each episode and each movie, because it kind of keeps you on edge of like, oh, wait, are we still in danger? Are we okay?
Yeah. And the whole, like, you killed him, but he's not, you can never get rid of him. That aspect of it was, I guess that's the whole, that's the whole premise of Freddy, but I liked that was sort of the lesson of the movie. Like, you can't get rid of this evil.
Yeah. What did you think of the production design?
It's definitely like, it's got some cheesy 80s looks to part of it, but I thought the nightmare scenes, like there was a scene where he cuts into himself and drips, and the boiler room looked pretty good. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah. It felt like they used a lot of actual locations to film this instead of, I don't think that they would be using green screen in 1988, but
if they did, like you'd be able to tell.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But I think they actually went to a boiler room and used that. Mm-hmm. But at the beginning, when it's Freddy introducing the episode, and throughout when he's like, I think it's right after where the commercial breaks would be, when he comes to like reintroduce what's going on and kind of gives a recap. That set design, it looked like it was just in the corner of a warehouse, and they were like, let's just throw some green and red lights on, add a fog machine, tear down some of the wallpaper or whatever. Let's just make it look really creepy.
Yeah.
And I'm not complaining about that. I actually kind of liked it for what it is. And I'm not sure if that was Michael Strawn's doing, since he's the production
Mick Strawn,
designer.
from Nightmare 4.
Yeah, sorry, Mick. Yeah, Mick Strawn. Yeah. So, yeah, and that's how we know him from Nightmare 4. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was sort of like iconic Freddy locations. Mm-hmm. And at the very beginning, when the newscaster, this was like a weird thing because they didn't go anywhere with it, but it's like a newscaster suddenly gets pulled from transported from the newscast he's doing into the courthouse. But the courthouse, I swear that's the school from the original Nightmare on Elm Street. Because he lands
there. So too.
Yeah, he lands there and it's like, oh, the school. But it's not, because there's a sign that says courthouse.
That says Springwood Municipal Court.
Oh, okay.
Something like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I will talk about it in later episodes because that's when I noticed it. Everything in Springwood starts with Springwood. It's Springwood High, Springwood Court, and I couldn't imagine, I'm from Akron and I live in Columbus now. And we have different names for everything,
Right.
There's not just Columbus High School, there's other high school names. So I just find that funny that in the town of Springwood, everything starts with Springwood.
I guess, yeah, they're proud of their town.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, I did notice that the newscaster just gets pulled out of his report and is transported to the front of the courthouse, but nothing really ever comes of that.
Yeah. Do we even see him again later? Or is he only at the very beginning?
We do. Yeah. He's only at the very beginning. So I don't know what that's for, but I mean, it was cool, but it just didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
So, okay. So what kind of a rating would you give No More Mr. Nice Guy? I guess for it being the pilot episode of Freddy's Nightmares. So
are we comparing it to television in general or to Nightmare episodes?
Let's pretend that it's 1988 and you just watched this episode. After watching this episode, would you tune in next week? And you could either be your age now or, however old you were in 1988. What were you, 11?
I turned 10.
Okay.
In 88, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I probably would.
Okay.
I mean, you get it's got a lot of Freddy in it. You get your nightmare sequences. I would probably tune in again. Mm-hmm. What about you?
Yeah, I think I would. I was 9 in 1988 when this came out. So if I was allowed to watch that kind of TV when I was younger. So yeah, I definitely would have tuned in because I was a Nightmare on Elm Street fan. So any ounce of Freddy was like, oh my God, bring it. I'll sit through 45 minutes of, not crap, because that's not fair to say, but I'll sit through 45 minutes of this just to see one glimpse of Freddy. So yeah, I definitely would tune in again as an adult, however, and not having access to a DVR or anything. I don't know. I don't think I would have made it a top priority to watch it.
Yeah.
I would love now if they brought some type of Springwood slasher TV series, like a prequel to A Nightmare on Elm Street. I would love that as a TV show.
Yeah, that would be great. But it would undoubtedly have much better production values and people would be scrutinizing it more.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, maybe they have plans for it. I don't know if they would get Robert Englund to play Freddy. I guess he could be any age, playing Freddy before he's burned up. But even if they brought on a different actor to play him for a TV series, I wouldn't mind too much if somebody else played Freddy other than Robert Englund.
Yeah, or it could be similar to Freddy's Nightmares where he's Freddy, but he's not in it all that much. Yeah, I do like the Tales from the Crypt aspect. When I was watching it, I was getting a Are You Afraid of the Dark vibe. Oh, yeah.
But some of the Are You Afraid of the Dark episodes are a lot better than what Freddy's Nightmares provided us with. So,
yeah.
Oh, well.
And I guess we should point out that it was directed by Tobe Hooper, who's a well-known horror director who did Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Poltergeist.
Okay. Did he only do the one Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or did he do any of the sequels?
He did the first two.
Okay.
And he did a horror movie in the 70s called Eaten Alive that had Robert Englund in it.
Oh, okay.
He passed away a few years ago. I'm trying to think of his more recent output, but
I might be able to help you with that. Let's look at his career. Let's do film. Oh, he did Salem's Lot when that was a TV show. I didn't know that was a TV show.
Oh, the miniseries?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was really good.
Yeah, and he did Freddy's Nightmares as TV. He did Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Eaten Alive, The Fun House. I remember that movie. That was a great movie.
That was
so good. He did Crocodile, which is in 2000, and Mortuary 2005. He kind of stopped in 2005. He did that one film, and then in 2013 he did another one. But he was more prominent in the 90s with film. Yeah. Oh, The Fun House. Oh, I haven't thought about that movie in a long time. That was so good.
It was really good.
Yeah.
It's like the teenage girl, and she's got the little brother who keeps playing pranks on her.
The Fun House? Yeah. And then they end up in a fun house?
Yes. Then she goes with her friends, and then the little boy follows them in.
The brother. Yeah. I just remember like the majority of the death scenes in that movie, and just being like totally impressed and amazed by it. But yeah, I'm gonna have to watch that. Halloween's coming up. Well, this is actually airing on Halloween, so happy Halloween, everybody!
Yay, happy Halloween!
So yeah, I'm gonna watch that. Okay, I'll find it.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I'm glad we saw that. So, okay. So you would definitely tune in next week if this was 1988 for you.
I think, I didn't actually start watching horror movies until I was 13. They were not welcome in my house when I was a kid. But I think like as once I started being into Freddy, I would absolutely have tuned in the following week.
Okay. Yeah, I would have too. So I guess that's a good segue into episode 2.
Fantastic. Excellent.
All right.
Thank you for downloading our first episode. Thanks for listening. And we hope you will join us again next week when we talk about Season 1, Episode 2, It's a Miserable Life, in which the star of Hedwig and the Angry Inch courts the star of Friday the 13th, Part 7.
That's so cool.
Everyone.
I love it.
Right.